Hi there. We are going to do exercise 10 right now. So let's look at this part. It looks like we've got, two extrudes happening here because we've got what looks like two different depths here, the kind of main part and this little ring in the middle. But I do believe we can make that from one sketch. And I think that sketch should look exactly like this. Now, I remember from making this one in the past that this has a couple little tricky things. Not everything's tricky. It seems some things are pretty straightforward actually, but it looks like we've got some circles, we've got a slot, we've got another circle over here, and then we just have some, rounded corners. I seem to remember that this little spot in here is particularly tricky, but we'll just deal with that when we get there. We're going to start off, I'm going to put the origin at the center right here, and then we'll work our way out from there. I think we'll place these whole circles and lines and dimensions first, and then we'll go from there. So it looks like the first thing we need are two circles, a 20 diameter, which is the inner circle, and a 40 diameter, that is the second circle. So let's go. I started my EX10 file. I set the units to milliliters, and again, it looks to me like we're going to make this on the front plane based on that orientation. So I'm going to right click on the front plane, click new sketch, hit N to look normal, and P to hide the planes. And let's start with that 20 and that 40. So click, make that 20, do another one, click, make that 40, and grab those dimensions and get them out of the way. Okay, so now let's go back and see what we're going to locate. So we've got a circle here, and it's 15. Now I'm going to go up here, and I'm going to just make a circle. Now I don't want to go straight up from there because that's not the orientation. I got to break that constraint, and I'm just going to go up here and make one that's 15. Now let's take a look at dimensions. So it looks like there is an offset. It's kind of, the vertical offset's easy to figure out. It's 40, right? See, the center line of this and the center line of this are 40. So I can do that dimension pretty easily right off the bat. I'll click here and here, drag it out so it looks vertical, and type 40. Now here's where it gets a little trickier. How the heck are we supposed to know? They don't have a dimension for these two, right? But check this out. They have a dimension of 50 and 40 to here, which is a total of 90. And then they have a dimension from here back to the center of 85. So it appears that these are 5 away from each other. Now, I don't actually think I'm going to do it that way. I think I'm going to kind of follow along with their dimensions. And I'm going to make the construction line that's going to make this slot. Now, I do notice that it is lined up vertically, or it's going to have a horizontal constraint, I should say, with the center line of this hole. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the line tool, turn it into construction, hover over here, come out here somewhere, and make a line. Okay, and I already forgot what dimension it's supposed to be. It's 40. So let's do that. I'm going to go back and get the dimension tool, and I make that 40. Now, if we go back to our drawing, we can see that this point that defines the end of the slot and the center of the circle is 50. So I can put that dimension in there now, and it should make things almost turn black. Not quite, but almost. So let's get the dimension tool, go from here to here, make that 50. Okay, so what's going to make these things go from blue to black? This part. It says that it's 85 from the center of this hole to the right part of the line that defines the slot over there. So I'm going to take that dimension tool, click here, drag down here, and make that 85. Okay, now we've located things according to our drawing. And let's take a look at that slot real quick. It looks like it's got a diameter 12 on the end. Okay, now I already forgot whether it defines it as diameters or radiuses. If it's diameter, we're going to live with the 12. If it's radius, we're going to have to cut that in half and make it 6. But let's get the slot tool, which is located under the offset. I'm going to click that line. I'm going to click again. And if you notice, it did give us diameter. So let's double click that and make it 12. All right. So we've got our interior features. Okay, now we have to do the part that goes around the outside. Now, this is the part that, what's kind of tricky about this is, I don't think the top looks particularly tricky, but I think some of these inside, it's hard to tell what's going on. So when you see radius 15 here, that's radius 15 concentric with this point. When you see a radius of 30 here, that's concentric with this point. Okay, you also see a radius of 30 here that is concentric with this point. So what we have is what appears to be a lot of, what appears to me a lot of arcs that are tangent to other things. And I think we should just make partial arcs for these 3 different radiuses, the 30, the 15, and the other 30. By the way, that says diameter 30, not radius. And then we'll let the tangents make everything else clear. So let's start with this one right here. I'm going to get a center point arc. I'm going to click here and just draw something. And I am going to be very careful about accidental constraints. See how there's an accidental constraint waiting to happen there? We do not want those. I'm just going to draw a very short partial arc right there. Okay. Now over here, we were supposed to have something that is 30, and it looks like it goes, most of the way. So I'm going to do a partial arc out here with a diameter of 30. So same tool, come out here, and definitely try to avoid any accidental constraints. And it said diameter 30, which would make the radius 15. Okay. And then down here, it says radius 30. And I'm just going to go slightly below the line to somewhere down in this quadrant. So I'm going to start slightly below the line, go somewhere down here, and stop. Okay. So now what? Well, I do have what appears to be a horizontal line that connects to these 2 curves. And again, it's the assumption is that everything's tangent. So I'm going to get a line. I'm going to connect those 2 points. Okay. Now that line needs to be horizontal. So I'm going to get the horizontal constraint and make it horizontal. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create tangent constraints between here and here and here and here. And that should kind of define it a little bit. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect these 2 points with a line. Obviously, there's not going to be any form of there's no vertical or horizontal constraint on that line. We really don't know what it is, but I think it's very safe to assume by looking at the smooth transitions that these are also tangent constraints. So I'm going to click here and here with my tangent constraint, and here and here. And now we have something that seems to be fairly defined. Okay, let's look and see if there's anything else that was going to help us out with that. And I don't really see anything. So what I'm then going to do is create this other arc, okay, that has a radius of 50, and then maybe connect it with a tangent constraint here and a tangent constraint here. And I seem to remember from some point in the past that there are issues over here. So let's just at least start with this. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually make sure I have no tools selected. I'm going to drag this a little further up, somewhere like that. Okay, and then I'm going to get a 3-point arc. And I'm going to go here and say there, and then just click it and make it 50. Okay, now I'm going to make a tangent constraint between here and here. Okay, now here's the tricky part. It needs to connect to this, but the question that I have is this thing going to end down here, vertical with all those points above it, or is it going to end over here somewhere, or what? Well, I just don't know. I'm going to move it over here and then put a coincident point connection between those two parts. And if you notice, things got weird on us. And I think the problem is that I thought I specified the radius of this curve, and I clearly did not. It's supposed to be a radius of 30. So let's get the dimension tool, click on this curve, and make it 30. Okay. Well, first of all, you notice it made that go black. And now let's add the coincident constraint between, the tangent constraint between these two and see if that finishes it off in a way that looks right. I'm going to hit tangent and tangent. That looks pretty good because I'll tell you what, when I look at it here, it does appear to not be flat. I can't really zoom in on that, but it appears to kind of go back up a little bit. And if you look here, it does appear to go back up a little bit. I think this is the sketch we need. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to pull this out because I'm a little picky about stuff like that. Makes things so they look pretty. There we go. And then let's accept the sketch. Okay, I'm going to right click, make this isometric. And I'm going to actually extrude this part first. Now let's go back to our drawing. And if you notice, we have a section cut out across here, this A section, that shows that the extrude that comes all the way out to this green surface is 20 plus 15 or 35. So let's make that extrude. Preparing, there we go. And let's make that 35. And we'll accept that. And then it hides the sketch, so we're going to unhide that sketch. And it looks like the rest of the extrude is 15. So now I'm going to start another extrude, select this, change it from 25 to 15, and make sure that it says add, accept it. Now I'm going to hide that sketch. And there it is. And it definitely does look like that. A pretty complicated one, but hey, we pulled it off. So until next time, thank you.